There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped in 10th and Ranch, Michael Byler.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. So yesterday, in the Rex Heuermann case, he had his second appearance in front of the magistrate, the court, and people, for whatever reason, there was so much hype about it, that what was going to go on at this court appearance. And Mr. Heuermann, Rex Heuermann, has been charged with killing 3 women and burying their bodies, of course, near Gilgo Beach, in a case that, up until very recently, was open for nearly 13 years. In court yesterday was about 140 spectators. Some were relatives of those who were killed. Others were members of the press who had reported on Mr. Heuermann but never had seen him in person. Little had been known about this hearing in Suffolk County Court in Riverhead early Tuesday morning. It was referred to merely as a conference. In court records, and in most cases, it would have been a routine appearance. Yet roughly 250 reporters, producers, photojournalists, and videographers waited for hours to watch the 8-minute proceeding. It was the second time Rex Heuermann, a 59-year-old architectural consultant in Manhattan, who, of course, has denied the charges and pled not guilty since he was arrested on July 13th. Prosecutors on Tuesday said they gave Mr. Heuermann's lawyer, Michael Brown, 4 2-terabyte hard drives that contained 2,500 pages of documents and photographs and hundreds of hours of video collected by the police and prosecutors. At a news conference after the proceeding, which we'll watch a little bit of later, Suffolk County District Attorney Raymond Tierney said the charges in the indictment are just allegations, and this evidence is the first step in the process of proving those allegations. With me today and joining me, and I love when he joins me because we call him the man of reason, former NYPD sergeant, a professor of criminal justice, attorney. Welcome to the show, Mike Geary. Welcome, Mike.
Billy, thank you for having me on. Good to see you.
You know, Mike, yesterday, some people, of course, the people that want sensationalism, the people that think every day is going to be an exciting day, some people compared yesterday to be a nothing burger. I hate that expression, by the way, but some people said it's a nothing burger. And I think it was more than nothing. You want to sort of update our audience on what it was yesterday?
Okay, Billy. Yeah, the first appearance is when he was arrested and he pled, and that was interesting. And it was a short, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty? He consulted with his attorney. He pled, not guilty. He's remanded to the Suffolk County, Department of Corrections, the county sheriff's office. Yesterday's appearance really was just a little conference between the judge, public conference between the judge, the district attorney Tierney, and Mr. Heuermann and his attorney. And it's the very, very beginning of the discovery process. He had 2,500 pages worth of documents, autopsy reports, DNA reports, video of him from surveillance, and some whatever, photographs and things like that from the medical examiner's office. They will probably produce more again and give it to the prosecution when he appears for his next court date, which is scheduled for, I think, September 22nd, something like
27th. I think it's 27th, Mike.
Yeah. So that'll be the next thing. Now, these are not exciting in any way. He's not going to speak or it's all about the 2 attorneys and the judge, and the judge is making sure that the material is turned over and everybody's, acting above board. But he's there. He's entitled to be there, and he is just going to sit there like Brian Kohlberger. He's right. Whenever they go to court, you see he's just sitting there. He's not speaking to the judge. He's whispering in his attorney's ear, and the attorneys are talking to each other and to the judge. And it's the beginning of the discovery process. There's a lot of discovery material that the district attorney is going to turn over. And there's a lot of discovery material that maybe they don't even have yet themselves because they're still processing it, still analyzing it, especially all the work that they did at the house. That will come again, maybe in late September and in the future. So it's I don't like the term nothing burger because it is very significant, but it's not exciting.
You know, Mike, I don't like that expression either. But one of the things I think it was a good thing that yesterday that the public got to see in a court of law, and many people that weren't in the court of law yesterday got to see a photograph of him, and he is an extremely imposing figure. There's a picture of him, it's a little blurry, of when he was arrested, and you could see that he just dwarfs the detectives, which I would imagine, most cops are pretty good size, but he just dwarfs them. He's so much bigger than any detective that worked on this case. And 6'5", 6'6", whatever you want to believe, 280 to 300 pounds. That's an imposing figure, a scary figure. And, apparently yesterday I spoke to Melanie Little, who's a frequent guest on this show. And she said when he walked into the courtroom, she did feel the presence of evil in that courtroom. And of course, when you look at what he's being charged with, how could you not think that, the Gilgo Beach serial killings, after a decade-long investigation into multiple murders believed to have been carried out by a serial killer on Long Island, a suspect has been arrested. And of course, that is Rex Heuermann, male, white, 59, of Massapequa Park, Long Island, an architect, a father of two grown adults, actually, married at the time of this, and his wife has since filed for divorce. This case began in 2010 with the retrieval of 4 female bodies on a desolate stretch of Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach. It was only the first of several discoveries of bodies at that location. And all the remains of 9 women, a man, and a toddler were found in that area. From the beginning, the 4 women whose bodies were first retrieved were reduced to their profession as prostitutes. That now seems to have changed. Well, that was coming from the New York Times. Many people make it such an issue that they were listed as sex workers. However, Mike, you worked these kind of cases before. In police jargon, in police vernacular, in police, the way they investigate, that is an important component of this because it shows MO, shows modus operandi. Why is this potential serial killer, which they didn't know initially, they thought it was a serial killer. Why is he targeting sex workers? Is there a commonality? Is there a connection? And it turned out, yes, there was a connection. And the connection, of course, we found out were these burner phones. And the fact that he was calling these sex workers utilizing these burner phones. And if you didn't keep an open mind and realize the possibility that this was a pattern and related to modus operandi, method of operation. And then later on, as the investigation enhanced, became bigger, we realized there was also something called a signature. And we'll get into that later, but there's no reason for public or anyone to get upset that they were listed as sex workers. That is an important investigative component for the investigation of this case. Mike.
Billy, absolutely, it's very important because it goes to modus operandi, like you said. Who is this suspected serial killer who at the time when they formed the task force, they didn't know who it was, and they did a great job. But you have to get into the head of the serial killer. Who is he targeting? Do these they found 4 of them, and he's been charged with 3. These 4 girls, what do they have in common? It's probably serial killers that I have heard about, like Joel Rifkin and BTK. They're not just targets of opportunity, like a random person they see along the side of the road. They're targeting a particular type of person who's the most vulnerable. BTK would look for older women and women who seemed like they weren't living with a man or a family, that sort of thing. You're always looking for, who can I kill easiest? Who's the easiest target? And to identify them as prostitutes, that's not a pejorative in this kind of case at all. Police are very, very sympathetic because they're the ones who are taking the brunt of many of these serial killers, because serial killers believe that, rightly, quite often, that these are the most vulnerable ladies that there are. If you want to kill a lady, if you're into killing women, those are the ones that are most likely to be successful with, because especially in the evening, there's not a lot of people around. If they're working by themselves, they don't have any sort of network. They maybe don't have family looking for them. Their family might not even know where they're living. And so probably that's part of his MO. That's important, because when you're in that task force and you're trying to figure out who it is, you're not just figuring he's going to go after mother 3 who's a soccer mom, coming home from taking her kids to the park to watch a game or something like that, or a little girl who's walking home from a school, like a little elementary school aged kid. No, he's going after specific target audience, and he's going right after them. You have to keep that in mind. And I'm sorry the public does feel that we're making a big deal of it, or we're using it in a disrespectful manner. Not at all. Not at all. It's important to know who to target, who this person is targeting. That's all it is.
Rachel Wyatt, thank you for your comment. He targeted sex workers because they are the most vulnerable and easy access to a man like him.
Right.
He is not a guy that could attract women easily. Rachel, you're so correct. And thank you for basically reiterating and supporting what we had just said, because there's folks that perhaps, think that it's, so why do you have to say that they're sex workers? Because it's an important component of this investigation. And as they continue in this investigation, surely they're going to look for more of the same, of that type. That was his MO. And MO is an important component of this type of investigation. During yesterday's hearing, Nicholas Santamartino, an assistant district attorney, told the court that prosecutors had given Mr. Heuermann's lawyer only the first portion of evidence. The accused man in court nodded as Mr. Santamartino continued. The prosecutor said there were the autopsy reports of Amberlynn Costello, Melissa Bartolome, Megan Waterman, and 3 of the 11 bodies discovered along a stretch between 2010 and 2011. There were also details about genetic material that authorities had collected and tested, as well as the video of the crime scenes in Mr. Heuermann's office, his storage unit, and his home in Massapequa. Mr. Heuermann was charged last month with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of second-degree murder in the deaths of Miss Costello, Miss Bartolome, and Miss Waterman. He has pled not guilty to all those charges. He was not yet charged with the murder of Maureen Brainard-Barnes, although the district attorney, Ray Tierney, said that they believed that those charges will be forthcoming. He couldn't give a time frame on that, but clearly Rex Heuermann is a suspect in the case of Maureen Brainard-Barnes. And when they have enough evidence to bring the indictment down for that case, I believe they will do so. Mike?
Yeah, Billy, yes. From what I know, the grand jury that indicted Rex Heuermann is still sitting, and they're still hearing evidence. So this is a long-term, ongoing investigation. That task force is going to stay until the job is done. It might stay together for another year. We don't know. But the grand jury, too, is sitting for a long time, and they're going to be continuing to investigate, hearing evidence, And if they feel there's probable cause to charge Heuermann with that fourth murder, they will absolutely do that. And they will do that as quick as they can. But it might take months to get back, any other evidence that they need, what little bit of evidence or what they think they're lacking. Because there are times, and as a homicide detective and as a sergeant, your detectives might feel that you've got enough to make an arrest in a case. But a district attorney might say, no, looking forward to the time when they're going to present that case in court, they want a little bit more evidence. So even if they know you could make the arrest, they may hold off and say, get some more, do a little bit more, get another witness, nail it down, until we got no absolute uncertainties left. It's got to be unequivocal before we move to court. And that's what I think is happening here. The district attorney, Tierney, is being very careful, dotting every I, crossing every T. And when he charges, when he charges Heuermann with that fourth homicide, he'll know he not only does he have probable cause, but he has enough in his mind to take it to a conviction in court. So everyone, just patience on that case, because that one might take months.
Mike, 100%. Cops detectives always want, we got enough, let's arrest them.
Right.
And the district attorney would be like, slow down.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to do this, and this. Once you do that, those 5 things, then we'll decide if we're ready to pull the trigger on the arrest. So, yeah, there's 2 different points of view, because after all, the detective has to make the arrest, but then they also have to raise the right hand and testify in court. But the district attorney or the prosecuting ADA, they not only have to okay the arrest, but they have to prosecute the case. 2 different things. One based on probable cause, one based on beyond a reasonable doubt, that they have to defeat, like convict, without beyond a reasonable doubt. A reasonable 12 jurors there, they have to convince them that this is the guy that did these horrific crimes. And again, beyond a reasonable doubt. And detectives, of course, they want to make the arrest. And they, when the arrest is made, people have the false assumption, all right, now all the heavy lifting's over. No, it's not over. In fact, a lot of times it's just begun. There is a lot more work to do, especially on this case, for the fact that these cases began 13 years, maybe even 16 years ago. And we know Rex Heuermann is 59. So let's say it was 13 years ago. He would have been 56 when these murders started. Do we really believe, do experts, do forensic psychologists, do behavioral analysts really believe that he just started doing this at the age of 46? What did he do before that? What were some of the life events that may have made him stop for a bunch of years? Did he have a death in the family? Did he get married? Did he have children? And we know he has adult children. I believe his daughter is 23. Mm-hmm. I'm not exactly sure of his son, maybe 25 or 26. So he has other things in his life. But these are the things that investigators will look at. They'll look at an exhaustive look at his travel. Where has he been? Where has he gone to? Has he traveled outside the country? We know he has a place down in South Carolina. Already, they have cleared him of the Atlantic City serial murders. And I believe potentially maybe they have DNA that, again, didn't match his and other information that cleared him from that. He's not a suspect in that anymore. But are there potentially other missing persons in other jurisdictions that we don't even know about yet that could potentially be part of Rex Heuermann's, alleged sick, perverted life, So are there missing persons who haven't been discovered yet? Or are there missing persons that we just haven't connected to this man yet? All these are possibilities, and this is the exhaustive search. And detectives must go where the evidence leads them. And that's the facts of an investigation like this that is exhaustive And again, it's cliche. We have to cross every T and dot every I, but that can't be more true than a case like this.
Yeah, Bill, being given his age, like 59, and the fact that we believe he's killed at least these three prostitutes, these three women over years ago. I doubt that he probably started seeing prostitutes in his 40s. I'm sure, I would bet my paycheck that he's seen hundreds of prostitutes over the course of several decades, and many of them he never even harmed. But I'm thinking in this case, as we've talked about it, looking at the MO, it's possible he may have seen these girls before, gotten their trust, maybe acted as the husband who wants to fool around behind his wife's back. She's on vacation with the kids, gotten their trust. Maybe he's met them at a motel, that sort of thing. And then he'll come back again, get their trust, maybe bring them to his house, that sort of thing, playing some sort of psychological game, getting their trust. I would seriously doubt these are the only girls that he's killed. I would believe that there's probably more. And one of the things that Billy, much more than I and even Phil, is that there's not always going to be you're going to be able to pin a homicide on somebody because of the ravages of time and nature, and what that does to the decomposing body. It's not going to give you all of the answers that you may need to pin it on someone to say that's the person that did it. We can take a look at all these records. That's the difficulty in it. There's a lot of frustrations, and you may hit a dead end, and the case may go cold. And so that's always very frustrating. But I think Rex has done many misdeeds over the course of the last 30 years. Unfortunately, we may never know the true extent. This might be just the tip of the iceberg, or it might be a sum total. But I don't think it's a sum total. I think it's the tip of the iceberg. The hard part is there's going to be girls found and there won't be any possible scientific way to connect him to this crime. And we're going to have to accept that.
Absolutely. I'm going to play a little of this from the court TV.
From 24-year-old Shannon Gilbert, an escort who was at a house on Long Island.
What are you going to do to me? What are you going to do to me? Stop them! These people are trying to kill me.
After that call, Shannon went missing. And when investigators began to search for Shannon, they discovered much more. 4 victims on Gilgo Beach, all working as escorts. Then 6 more bodies, some of them dismembered, found close by on the same stretch of beach. Then a year after the first victim was found, Shannon Gilbert's body was finally recovered. The investigation for the killer was a search for a serial killer. But that investigation was delayed and obstructed by corruption in the police force, by the chief himself, who had his own legal issues connected to escorts. Then in 2023, a new task force was put together and the case was solved within months.
Heuermann is a demon that walks among us. If not for the members of this task force, he would still be on the streets today.
Tonight, we are live from the courthouse in Suffolk County, New York, as the accused murderer makes an appearance in court. We have all the details as our in-depth coverage of the Long Island serial killer case continues. I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And make no mistake, the arrest of the accused Long Island serial killer was big. It was important. It was significant. Think about everything that happened before that. 13 years of not knowing, not being able to solve a case. On the one hand, the public. You've got a serial killer out there. Where is he? Who is he? Is he striking again? How many more victims are there because it took 13 years? But now he's in custody. Big, big moment for all the victims' families, for law enforcement, for the community at large, to have him in cuffs behind bars, charged in this case. But that's just step one. Those of you who watch the show, watch the network, you understand this process. They always say the wheels of justice turn slowly. Well, for 13 years, they were going really slow trying to solve the case. Things.
You know, Mike, so much has been said about the mistakes made in this case. And yes, we have to acknowledge that there were
Yeah.
huge mistakes made in this case. 13 years might had this case been solved earlier had they appointed someone like Rodney Harrison much earlier, bringing the sort of the New York City know-how to this case. And it seems to me that establishing that task force was the catalyst that put this case really on the fast track. And look, we've enumerated, we spoke about it. We had a real sort of a little argument sort of show when we had Melanie Little on, and she was really a little bit upset about the fact that the information about the Chevy Avalanche and this large man visiting Amber Costello and him being identified, and somehow that information got lost somewhere in the case folder, and it wasn't revealed till 13 years later. So what a lot of people would ask is, well, what if it turns out that he did kill other people? Wasn't that a ridiculously huge mistake to have made? How could that have been overlooked? And look, I don't have the inside information on this, but anyone that looks at this case, that's a glaring mistake. And I don't think anyone could ignore it. And then when you add to that Chief Burke, the Suffolk County chief, who was at one time in charge of this case, who refused to bring the FBI in, it stinks. It does. It absolutely does. Your thoughts, Mike?
Billy, yes, it does. It does stink. And we've talked about this. I think Bobby Chacon last week had a great comment on it. He says, at the time, there may be a culture of, well, we're a small, sleepy, county out here on the eastern part of Long Island. Things are quiet out here. They get these 4 girls. They find their bodies in the dune, and they don't know what to do because they're not like the NYPD. They don't have a history of experience with this sort of thing. The NYPD, this is their detectives. They're the best in the world. This is their stock and trade. They can do this sort of stuff. And they may not have had a really competent squad of detectives and supervisors to understand how to go about this kind of case, because this is huge. You have 4 bodies in one stretch of beach, and especially 4 really close to each other. You got a serial killer. Nobody has to tell you that. And you need to bring in outside help that have the expertise, technical expertise, state or the FBI. And unfortunately, the police commissioner, Burke, for whatever reason, didn't want to pull the trigger on that. Again, maybe it was due to gross incompetence, or maybe it was due to the fact that he didn't want the FBI snooping around and asking questions, and state police snooping around asking questions of call girls. Perhaps that's what he was afraid of. I don't think in any way, shape, or form, obviously, he knew Rex Heuermann. He knew who the killer was. He was trying to protect Rex Heuermann and protect himself in any way. No, I think it's, gross incompetence, idiocy, and that's sad. And I hope to God that there was not any further homicides after those decisions not to bring in the FBI, not to bring in the state police, when those decisions were made.
Absolutely. Folks, one of the most important things is, and from the police departments work in a hierarchical fashion, right? And the chief, or the highest ranking boss on the police department is the one who makes the decisions. And you have to hope that the person in that position that's running a major investigation listens to the detectives, because ultimately the detectives in cases like these are the most important component of this. And a chief or a boss that doesn't listen to his detectives and listen to what they found out, listen to the direction they want to go in, that boss isn't worth the dime's worth of shit. I'll tell you that right now, because the detectives are the ones out in the field. The detectives are the ones that are talking to the people, interviewing people, talking to family members, out in the street, shaking the tree, like we like to say. And I think that maybe wasn't done 13 years ago, that the detectives perhaps weren't being listened to, and it was being run from, somewhere else. And the case was not, it was not on the front burner of anyone's agenda, it seemed. And that's sad in this case, because when this task force was put together, 2 months later, they had the information that led to the perpetrator in this. And look, there was nothing fast about it. They had a name. Now they spent a year building a case against this name, surveilling this name, following this guy around, looking through over 300 subpoenas, search warrants, one-on-one surveillance. That's how, everyone loves the pizza story. That's how they watch Rex Heuermann throw away that pizza box. And from the discarded crust, they were able to surreptitiously, we love that word on police off the cuff real crime stories, they were able to surreptitiously, without a warrant, because you don't need a warrant when someone throws something in the garbage, they were able to obtain it, swab the pizza crust for DNA from Rex Heuermann's saliva. They were able to get a sample, an exemplar, and compared it against a hair that was lifted from one of the bodies. And through mitochondrial DNA, they made a match to Rex Heuermann. When they first found that out, were they ready right away to pull the trigger and make that arrest? I think a lot of things pushed them to make that arrest. And one of them was the fact that Rex Heuermann's behavior was of the type that they felt he was probably still reaching out to sex workers. That in itself was scary enough. That what if he kills someone while we're watching him? Do we have probable cause yet? Do we have enough yet to arrest him and put this case forward? Those are all the things that the bosses and the district attorney of Suffolk County had to put all their heads together, and hopefully they included the detectives' heads in on these meetings to make a decision on when to pull the trigger and when to make the arrest of Rex Heuermann.
Yeah, Billy, it was getting to be a very critical juncture, because you've got that DNA analysis that hooks him up to the homicides with the pizza crust. That occurred like 6 months ago. They got all that information. They know he's checking out really violent porn websites. They know he's talking to sex workers. They're surveilling him. As you said, that would be a nightmare if they were surveilling him and a homicide occurred while they were surveilling him. And remember too, some of his searches, a huge number of his searches were about the task force. But that task force was publicly announced when it was formed, that they were going to get and solve this problem. They were going to get this guy as fast as they could, and they were putting all their resources to it. I'm sure an alarm went off in his head, and he was searching constantly. And all you need, just think about it, how the press can be. They might print up a story that may say something like, a detective leaked some information that they are ready to make an arrest any day now. The public should be happy about this. There's great new developments. You just get one story like that, Heuermann is going to stop doing what he's doing. And if he was lucky enough not to have been spotted or identified at that point, he may have avoided capture or avoided detection for a long time. But he was looking, and he was hoping and praying that his burner phones and things like that, all the technology associated with that, would shield him from detection. But absolutely, there came that juncture, and they had to say go or sit back a little bit more. I think they made the best choice. Go now, get him. It's going to be a surprise. You may wait another week or two or a month or two, and if one small little story leaks out or something like that, it's over. And especially, just think about it, What happens if he contacts a prostitute who's maybe been interviewed by someone associated with that task force? That's going to spoil the surprise. He's going to go underground. You don't know what's going to happen next. I'm glad they did it when they did it, and they may have saved someone's life by doing it now rather than later.
Absolutely. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, then you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed to us, go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, and give us a thumbs up. If you want to support us financially, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels, and we also have a YouTube channel memberships with 5 different levels, and our fans, our subscribers, and our friends are part of our YouTube family. You know, I just wanted to also mention something, and this goes hand in hand with what we talk about all the time. One of the reasons that the police keep things close to the vest, as we like to say in these investigations, is proven by this case. This guy was monitoring the police. What we would call that countermeasures or counter surveillance. He's studying what the police are doing. I'll tell a quick funny story. There was a serial killer in the cells, I won't say the precinct, in Manhattan North. And the detectives were talking about the case in which he was the killer in this case. He was listening as to what they had on this case. Again, we know as cops we shouldn't do that, but we all make mistakes. What was the chance that the serial killer was in the cell who they were talking about? It turned out he was arrested and charged, and he's doing life in prison now. But just that whole thing of why, and Rex Heuermann's a very good example of why you keep things close to the vest. He was doing what is known as countermeasures and studying what the police were doing. What were their techniques? How close were they to finding him? And, well, I use a Gearyism, consciousness of guilt. He was using burner phones because he was premeditated. He was trying to prevent from getting caught. So all these things are great reasons why the police cannot always tell the public or the press, and we know the press always wants to know what's going on. They can't always be transparent. And if anything, I believe in this case, they're telling the press a little bit too much. That's my opinion. And also, I've never seen a case in my police career where the district attorney is the spokesperson. It's always been the police, at least in the NYPD. I've never seen the district attorney giving press conferences every other day. I've never seen that. And I question why. Your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, Billy, the cops need to play everything close to the vest. Just think about the Koberger case and Chief Fry out in Idaho. He was sitting there and he wanted to say a lot, and he was being raked over the coals. People were, insinuating that they're like a little Mayberry RFD department that doesn't know what the hell they're doing. They're way out of their league. And that guy had to sit there and take it. And he sat there, and I would not want to play poker with that man because he could bluff you and you're going to lose your shirt. But he did what he had to do, and he took the heat, and everyone was surprised, but he did it the right way. And I think you've got to be that way. And the public may complain, editors may complain, reporters may complain, news outlets may complain, but you have to do that because we've seen the crazy rumors that have circulated about, the Murdoch case, the Koberger case, and this case. And it's horrible. And I think when it comes to the press conferences, they should be short and sweet, a prepared statement that's gone over by someone who's really experienced in public speaking and public communication. Should go over it with fine-tooth comb, edit it out a few things, and just to have them read it, or have someone from the PD read it, or someone from the district attorney's office read it. I know Tierney's very, very proud of the work that his team has done with Chief Harrison, and he wants to shout it out to say, look, we did this, but it's counterproductive. And he may say something, slip of the tongue, say something that's not true, or it's an exaggeration or whatever happens to be. Just give away a little something that he may not have needed to give away at that time because he feels like he wants to let the public know out in Suffolk County, hey, look, we got this done. But I don't think it's a good idea. It should be short and sweet.
You're 100% right, Mike. Let me play a little bit more of this from Court TV.
State police. Yeah, there's somebody after me. I'm sorry? There's somebody after me. Where are you? There's somebody after me. Okay, where are you? There's somebody after me. Where are you, ma'am? I don't know. No, stop it, please. Stop it, please. Please stop it. Please stop it. No, stop it. Please stop it. No. Let me fix that. Please stop it. No, please stop it, please. Please stop it. Please. No, what are you going to do to me? What are you going to do to me? Stop it. Please, get out of here. These people are plotting to kill me.
So that's Shannon Gilbert. Don't forget, it was the search for her that began this entire case. There she is making a call early morning hours of May 1st, 2010. She's, an escort on Craigslist, got called to someone's house out in Oak Beach. Joseph Brewer's his name. Michael Pack is her driver. Let's take a listen to part 2 of that phone call now.
Shannon.
So Shannon ran down the street on foot from 8 Fairway Drive to 17 Fairway Drive, again in Oak Beach, to Gus Coletti's house. Gus answered the door, spoke to Shannon, then Shannon ran off to another home, and then he called 911. Gus did, to report what he had seen. Take a listen.
Yes, I live at Oak Beach in the association. There's a young girl about 14 years old running around here screaming, and there's some guy trying to follow her.
What's the address there?
I'm at 17 the Fairway.
All right. You have a description of the girl or the boy?
Pardon me?
Do you have a description of the girl or the boy?
The girl is about 14 years old, got blonde hair, very small. The boy, I can't tell. He was into like a Suburban.
What color?
Black.
Very small, like the other victims. Let's bring back in our...
Mike, with this incident, they initially listed her death as accidental, which was sort of hard to believe that, well, she was seeing a client in Gilgo Beach. They had the address, they have the name. He's been interviewed numerous times. But initially, they had a theory that she fell down in the water and drowned, which I thought was a little bit ridiculous. And then I believe former New York City chief medical examiner Michael Baden did a second autopsy and found that the hyoid bone was broken, which is indicative of death by strangulation, asphyxia. And that was on a second autopsy. So what was that all about? Why did they not find that in the initial autopsy? Lou Lemoracco, thank you so much for the $20 super sticker. The suspect's attorney all over the media yesterday already stating this will be tried in court, not in the media. Thank you, Lou. Very much appreciated. You know what's interesting? The attorney for Rex Heuermann, his last name is Brown, and he's an 18B attorney. Mm-hmm. That 18B are attorneys that are private attorneys, but put their name on to be hired by indigent clients. Now, it's amazing that Rex Heuermann owned his own company, seemed like he owned some real estate. He was deep in tax trouble, owed anywhere from $200,000 to $250,000 in back taxes. Mm-hmm. Yet now he's indigent and is getting an 18B attorney. What are your thoughts on that?
Billy, I think Mr. Brown's got his work cut out for him. He's got the most high profile client he may ever represent, but he's also got a client who has absolutely no resources officially, and I think 18B attorneys, personally, I think they're great because they put their name. They may do other sort of practice, but they want to get into criminal defense. And they apply and they get on the panel. But he's got an uphill battle here with Heuermann because of all of the cell phone evidence, DNA evidence, things like that. But and he's going to have to do what he's been doing before. We're looking forward to exoneration in court. We look forward to our day in court. We really want to get this speedy trial. He told me, I think Defense Attorney Brown said to the media, when I spoke to him, Rex denied this, and he said to me, "I didn't do it." That's what a defense attorney does, and that's what they have to do. That's what he is ethically obligated to do. I've no doubt that he is very competent, and I hope this isn't his first criminal case. I'm sure he's
Mike, can I just interrupt you for
Yeah.
1 second? People in the chat want to know. It appeared that Rex Heuermann had money. Why are the taxpayers now paying for his defense? Now, well, I'll just say what I know. They're not going to just assign someone an 18B attorney or legal aid unless they do an investigation. They do an investigation. They found, wait a minute, this guy's got no money. Potentially, could they make him put up his house?
I don't know if they could, because he probably filed some sort of like what they call informa pauperis, means admitting that you're poor and that you need help from the state and that you can't really afford to hire an attorney. He may have some sort of his wages garnished by the state. You never know. He might have attachment to liens on his house. He may not actually have more than a couple of $1,000s in the bank to do any sort of as resources. So I'm not sure if he is ever found to be that he's got, say, $300,000 in the bank. Can they attach his house? I think somewhere along the line, the county is going to seize the property, sell it, and get all their tax money, and whatever's left over, if there is money left over, it'll go to his former wife or something like that. But I'm not sure if they would attach his house right now, sell it, and get the money in their pocket. I really don't know. That might be something for much later on. But he must be in pretty dire straits not to be able to hire an attorney. And I think he'd probably need about, at this point, he probably would need about $100,000 liquid right now to be able to hire a top tier defense attorney.
A lot has been said, a lot has been made of the fact that the police did search warrants at his house. They were there for 12 or 13 days. They basically destroyed the house. And I don't know what the house looked like before they got in there, because I've done search warrants where people said we destroyed their house. And I said, you should have saw it before we got there. It was worse. What we did actually made it look better. But anyway, in this case, explain to the audience, the police do the search warrants. They do not clean up afterwards. They do not call, the local cleaning service. They do not call contractors for damages that they may have done to the house inside in searching for potential evidence against a serial killer. You may find that harsh. You may find that, but there is the heirs, his wife. Now what she must do is sue the police department.
Yeah, Billy, the public doesn't understand it, but the police are not gentle when they're going through your car, they're going through your garage, they're going through your house, your living room, your dining room, your basement, they're going through your storage unit, your boat, whatever it happens to be. They are looking for, especially in this case, they're looking for DNA evidence, hairs, fibers, things like that, cell phones, anything they can find. They're going to rip up the carpet. They're going to go through the drawers. They're going to pull out all the drawers. They're going to, take that desk, shake it upside down and make sure there's nothing hidden in the desk. They're going to go through all of the cabinets. They're going to go through the refrigerator. They're going through the freezer. They're going to go in the shed outside where you keep your lawnmower, and a bicycle. They're going to go through that. And they don't have a duty to put it all back nice and neat. That's just the way it goes. And the poor lady, Ms. Her first name is Asa Elrup. She's going to have to do the best she can for her family at this point, and put it all back together as best they can, or do something else with it. But she will have to file a notice of claim against the county and the Suffolk County Police Department, and sue them in court. And hopefully she'll get back some amount of money. It'll be a negotiated sort of settlement, $50,000, $25,000, $100,000, whatever it is. And she'll have to try to put that towards putting her life back in order, fixing that house up. They ripped out, I think, a tub. They broke through a wall to get to the tub drain. It's a nightmare because they go in there like gangbusters. I've done it myself up as a sergeant up in the 3-0, just not being very gentle, not thinking about the consequences, just thinking about what we're looking for. Where can we find what we're looking for? Oh, it could be there. Let's tear that apart. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is.
Absolutely. Mike, I wanted to mention another thing we spoke about, and Rodney Harrison, the police commissioner of Suffolk County, said in no way does he believe the family knew anything about Rex Heuermann's second life. However, I would argue that his first life wasn't so good. Look at the house. And people will get mad at me, say, oh, you have no right to. Yeah, I am criticizing the house. Your house is indicative of who you are and how you go about your life. And apparently, from what the police said, when they entered it, they used the word cluttered. When cops use the word cluttered, believe me, it's a absolute pigsty. All right, because they use that word cluttered. So was there some, even within the family, acceptance of his, he had to have had aberrant behavior at home. He wasn't doing this. I don't believe this. I think there are signs, and not necessarily say, oh, because he doesn't clean his house or maintain his house, he's a serial killer. No, I don't mean that. I just means there are signs, perhaps he was abusive to his wife, abusive to his kids, didn't spend a lot of time with his family. That's just my opinion. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Billy, he does, from what you read, what you see on the networks, and what we know about our own experiences with these kind of people. He probably was a bully. He was bullied when he was a kid. He was probably a bully because he wanted to be in control, get back at people. He probably bullied his wife for many, many years. It probably was not a happy relationship, even with his children. Remember, that was his home, the home that he grew up in. He bought it from his mother, like maybe 20 years ago. It's not something that he and his wife, bought, like you and your spouse or me and my spouse would buy together. You settle on it, you fix it up together. That was his home. It wasn't her home. That was his home. He did whatever he wanted in that home, and his word was law. And I'm sure he bullied them. They accepted. Probably, I think that his wife probably knew on some levels that he was probably visiting prostitutes or things like that. I'm sure, but killing as a whole different story. But I think they knew that he had a whole other life, and they didn't dare tread on that or ask questions. I don't think he's the kind of guy that would broker any sort of discussions about his life. And that's sad, because I think his children and his wife lived in some level of fear of him.
Wilesy Pony, a channel member for 13 months. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Why couldn't Shannon Gilbert's cell phone be tracked? Wilesy, it was tracked. They know where she was going. She was going to see a John. They have the John. They've spoken to the John. She knocked on numerous doors as she was running away. They interviewed all those people. I don't know what happened to her cell phone after that. Did it disappear into the marshes there? Did it go cold? But they had a lot of leads on this. That's why there are many people that don't believe Rex Heuermann is responsible for the death of Shannon Gilbert, because she was live on the air. We heard her cell phone calls. I don't know exactly enough because, again, you need the actual case folder. Who did the detective speak to? She had a limousine driver on the site that brought her there. So they had a lot of information about her, yet she was lost for, I think, 13 months. They didn't find her. They found her after they found the other 4 bodies. So I can't I can't totally explain. They did track her right back to where she went. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, Billy, it seemed like when you listened to that 911 call and the desperation of the voice, it seemed like she thought that 911 could actually track her phone in real time and give like an exact location. You know, as when you take your phone and you're map questing or whatever, and you're walking around the city or you're driving, it can show you exactly where you are. I think she thought there was some sort of ability like that she could say, I'm, just look at my phone, figure it out on a map and you follow me, because it was late at night. She wasn't exactly sure of the location where she was at. She knew where she was supposed to be going, but she didn't know really how close she was. Yeah, then who knows what the exact technology was at that time when she disappeared. But you're right. The police actually did an excellent job of figuring out where she was, a while later, because they interviewed everyone, the limousine driver, the John, you've got the gentleman who called after she was rapping on his front door, that sort of thing. You got his phone call. Yeah, I don't think it's a Rex Heuermann case either, because it just doesn't fit. But yeah, she may have thought that, you must know where I am. I'm on my cell phone. I'm speaking to 911. You must know where I am. Like there's a little radar ping on the street. And unfortunately,
Mike, I could say that I've chased cell phones that we were up on, and it would be like 10 or 15 minute gaps.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's now on the Grand Concourse. Oh, okay. Where? What address? And only when the person stopped at a location, and actually this person, I'll tell you where they stopped. He was wanted for a murder. He stopped at the Dallas Barbecue right off the Deegan there in the Bronx. It's not there anymore.
Okay.
Now it's a club, but it's
Okay.
right off the Deegan. And he went in there and they said he's at such and such a location. And sure enough, we watched him walk out of there with a bag of chicken, and he was there with his girlfriend, and we took him down right outside of the restaurant Dallas Barbecue. But not until the person with the cell phone stopped, and then it constantly pinged at a location were we able to target it. I think that the technology, cell phones, is probably so much better now that they can pick you right out of your bed. In fact, they used to have that, Taru used to have a radar type device that they would take you right to the apartment. Oh, the phone's in here. And it was pretty amazing. But I don't know. They're probably even more advanced now than they were back then. I want to play a little bit of this, Mike, and from Court TV.
Kids, it's the all-American look, right? But there's this dark side that he has.
How did he have all of these hidden deviancies that no one had discovered in all of these years, and he was able to just keep that completely on the side, and now we see these horrific internet searches and all of the things that are actually part of the evidence? And how was he able to hide that for so long? And was there at some point a form of escalation, or maybe a rapid unraveling of his mental state that people didn't catch?
And if they can track him, they can definitely find out that he didn't start in his late 40s, that he may have started in his 30s or in his 20s, depending on where he went to college, depending on where he was living, if he's living in an apartment, all those things they look into, if they're actually going to get to the bottom of all the individuals he may have killed.
Of course, they're all talking about the accused Long Island serial killer, scheduled to be in court early next week. Court TV legal correspondent Julie Janae has more tonight.
To announce the indictment of defendant Rex Andrew Heuermann, 59 years of age. He's been arrested by the Suffolk County Police Department's homicide detectives, and he's been indicted for the murders of Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello.
On July 13th, 2023, architect Rex Heuermann was arrested in connection with 3 of the Gilgo Beach murders and remains a prime suspect in the killing of Maureen Brainard-Barnes. For more than a decade, the bodies unearthed on Gilgo Beach in New York terrified residents. 9 women, a man, and a toddler were discovered, and police believe Heuermann is connected to 4.
Rex Heuermann is a demon that walks among us, a predator that ruined families.
During a training exercise on December 11th, 2010, the remains of Melissa Barthelemy were discovered. 2 days later, the remains of Maureen, Megan, and Amber were all found. All 4 victims were petite females believed to be sex workers, missing clothes and bound in a similar fashion. They were killed by homicide. Before their disappearance, they had been contacted by a person using a burner phone.
For each of the murders, he got an individual burner phone, and he used that to communicate with the victims. Then shortly after the death of the victims, he then would get rid of the burner phone.
According to the phone records, investigators believed the serial killer lived in Massapequa Park and worked in Midtown Manhattan near Penn Station. They discovered Heuermann had access to several burner phones, and the calls were made inside what police called the box. Their suspect would also make sadistic calls near his office to the victims' families, with one particular call asking Barthelemy's teenage sister, quote, "Do you think you'll ever speak to her again?"
They had these phone records from day one. As you mentioned, they had the description of the guy, the car. They had all the information they needed.
A key detail in the investigation would be buried for years as a police chief was arrested for obstruction of justice. But in March of 2022, weeks after a new task force formed, an investigator found a witness description of a man matching Heuermann's characteristics at Amber Costello's home.
That individual was identified as a person who was between 6'4" and 6'6". A large man. Also of significance was the fact that he was driving a dark-colored, black, first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche.
Investigators would later find Heuermann's Chevy Avalanche in South Carolina.
One of the things that we did is we followed him because we wanted to get an abandonment sample of his DNA.
Investigators collected Heuermann's DNA from a discarded pizza crust and linked him to a hair found on a burlap covering Megan Waterman's remains. The investigation continues with the search of Heuermann's home and the possibility of other murder charges. He claims he is innocent and has an attorney who says he did not commit these murders.
In terms of speaking to my client, the only thing I can tell you that he did say as he was in tears was, "I didn't do this."
So what is?
So there's a sort of a short recap on it. There's so much to this case, and there's so much more to be done in regards to this case, and that's why this task force is and was so important and will continue to be important. Mike, let me go to a quick commercial. Folks, if you're looking for a great attorney in the New York metropolitan area, then Joe Murray is your man. Joe Murray's a retired NYPD police officer and a fantastic defense attorney. You can reach Joe on his cell at 718-514-3855. Email him at joe@jmurray-law.com. or go on his website, jmurray-law.com. Joe Murray is also a huge supporter of the Police Off the Cuff podcast. So, Mike, we covered a lot of this today. What if we want our listeners, our subscribers, our fans, our friends to take anything away from this today, it's that this case is by no means anywhere close to being over with. I would, many people we've spoken to, Dr. Joni Johnston, other people that are experts in forensic psychology, they all believe that he's done this before and didn't start at the age of 46. So that will be the job of investigators to uncover this, to potentially uncover more victims. And how do you do that? You do that. One of the ways you do that is all the evidence they collected from the house. voluminous. They have to photograph that, catalog it, make a computer database of everything they took in that they considered to be evidence. And then guess what? If there's potentially trophies among some of the things they recovered, let the public see it. This is where you use the press. You show on a TV show, broadcasting, this is what was recovered. If anyone recognizes this as belonging to a loved one, perhaps who is missing, please contact the Suffolk County Police. That's one way. That sounds, oh, that's so antiquated, but that works, believe it or not, because TV and the broadcast industry, they have access to millions of people. They put something like that out, and that's how you shake the tree. That's what it's called. Of course, regular gumshoe work. Get out into the community. Talk to people. And again, some of the stuff that you do as an investigator is follow the money. Let's see where he was spending his money. All right. Of course, his cell phone, his computer, all of those things they already have. So they're doing all these things that I suggest. And hopefully through all this investigative work, the investigative techniques, they'll come up with some of the information that they need to bring closure and to prove these cases for the families of these victims that were tragically murdered by this, as Police Commissioner Rodney says, this monster. Again, he's innocent to proven guilty monster. But if he did do this, he in fact is a monster. And, you could even call him a monster based on some of the search information that was found on his computer. A normal person doesn't search child porn sites or have child porn on their computer. So yes, I'll stand by that word monster. We'll call him an alleged monster, but he is a monster, And I always like to say near the end of the show, this case, of course, like every homicide case, is about the victims. And these victims, no matter what they did with their lives, they're real people and real human beings. They loved and they walked this earth, and they have families that love them. So we always want to remember Maureen Brainard-Barnes, Melissa Bartolome, Amber Lynn Costello, and Megan Waterman, and the other victims who Rex Heuermann has not been connected to yet, but the other victims that hopefully we can also bring closure to them and to their families. Mike, your final words.
Billy, the task force's great work and the arrest and of Heuermann and his appearance in court, these two appearances, it's not the beginning of the end whatsoever. He has so many issues and problems to deal with, and maybe even now federal crimes to deal with relating to child porn. This isn't the beginning of the end. This is the end, only the end of the beginning. It's going to go on for a long time, and I just hope everyone has the patience and understanding that this is going to go on for quite a while, and hopefully we'll solve as many missing girl cases as we possibly can. And if he is guilty, he spends the rest of his life in prison.
Absolutely. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, Bill Cannon, with my compadre, Professor Mike Geary, retired NYPD Sergeant. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And when we get new information on this case or information that we think is worth bringing to you, we'll surely do that. Have a great day, everyone, and God bless.
God bless.
One episode just ain't enough.